Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. Internet shutdowns are increasingly being ordered by Indian authorities for reasons like apprehensions of a law and order situation and also for preventing cheating in exams, among others. Today, Manipur has been under a complete internet blockade since over a month now, and internet rights groups have been talking about how this measure is unjustified, how it impacts people's fundamental rights, and also the state's economy. Today we have with us Member of Parliament Mr. Pradyut Bordoloi, who has questioned the government on several occasions over arbitrary internet suspensions across the country. Hello, Mr. Bordoloi. In 2022, you had written a letter to the IT Minister about whether the government is planning to come out with a law to regulate internet shutdowns. What had triggered this letter, and have things improved since then?
Well, I utilized various devices in the Parliament. I raised questions also, and also I wrote a letter to the IT Minister of the Government of India. In my letter, I wanted to seek opinion and information from the Government of India. Number one, whether, in the wake of such widespread internet shutdowns, whether the federal government, the Government of India, was planning to initiate any legislation giving, any guiding principles or anything for regulating such indiscriminate and arbitrary use of shutdowns as a means of maintaining law and order. That I wanted to know. Second thing is the data of the internet shutdowns that we usually now get only from different private sources, organizations, NGOs, but not government sources. So I asked the Government of India, do they have a repository of such data, information as to how many days internet have been shut down, what states, which states, regions thereof? And that was one question that I asked. And the third question, of course, I wanted to know when internet was shut down, because in modern days, a lot of people's livelihood pattern depends on the internet and digital world. So when they, arbitrarily shut down the internet, it obviously affects the, first thing, the economic cost, and a lot of people are dependent on internet. Even lives of the patients, medical patients also are dependent for teleprescriptions and things like this. So I just wanted to know from the minister, so what really are being done? I'm afraid I got the acknowledgement from the Government of India, the minister, but very routinely it was passed on to the state government, saying that, the Telegraph Act, whatever provisions that they have, the state government and the agency, you use it, and then they just pass it on, and then taking advantage of the Telegraph Act of 1985 and relevant positions, they just pass the buck on to the state government, and nothing concrete has emerged. Because since I wrote the letter and I got the acknowledgement of the minister in October 2022, in fact, the cases, the incidences of internet shutdowns, in fact, have increased since then.
So you're saying the questions that you had raised in the letter, they weren't answered by the government, none of them?
Yeah, because see, when I wrote the letter in 2022, in 22 years itself, there were, the data that I have got with me, there were 84 cases of internet shutdown in the year 2022. And now we have almost midway, June 2022. And so far, 35 cases are there, including the longest spell of internet shutdown in Manipur. Today is the 50th day of this internet, at a stretch, the internet shutdown is being imposed in Manipur. This is this scale I'm talking about. And ironically, the letter when I wrote in 2022, it was preceded by a 5-day stretch of internet shutdown in Manipur itself in 2022. And that actually prompted me to write this letter. But irony is this, today is the 50th day of a continuous and uninterrupted internet shutdown since 3rd of May in Manipur. Yeah.
So one of the questions that you had raised was about framing a legislation to regulate internet shutdown in India. Could you explain what this regulatory framework would look like?
See, usually the government tries to pass the buck on to the state government as it happens, saying that these are state subjects. And we know the states, there are subjects which, as per the state list of the constitution, but there are also, this is a federal union list thing.
Hmm.
Internet is an integral part of modern days existence. So any state government or any state agency should not be able to, impose the internet shutdown. There should be at least a directive principle. It may be resorted, but it should be resorted as a last resort. But for arbitrary reasons, any state government can, just shut down the internet. I just want to give you one example. Assam last year, both Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal followed, taking the cue from Assam. In the interest of conducting examinations and to prevent cheating in the examination hall, Assam government arbitrarily decided to shut down the internet, which is a very flimsy region, which should not be encouraged, to contain a very volatile situation, which may actually trigger a very grave law and order situation, or to basically prevent rumor mongering in a very grave situation. Internet may be imposed, internet shutdown may be imposed, but not in very, every day for any flimsy region, internet should be allowed to shut down. That's why if there are some federal law which may probably, give a framework, a standard SOP kind of thing, where state government should also have to take cognizance. That will not tantamount to infringement of the rights of the state in a federal structure. But at least if there's a directive principle, at least state government would also take cognizance, and they cannot really arbitrarily, just for for any region, internet shouldn't be allowed to be shut down. That kind of framework that I was talking about.
Okay, so sitting in Delhi, Mumbai, or Bangalore, any other metropolitan city, we don't see this kind of internet shutdowns, but we see it in Manipur, Kashmir, or Madhya Pradesh. Why is this? Is there any particular reason, or are there any reasons for this?
One thing is very, very, very sure that, see, India is a very diversified, very heterogeneous country. There are so many ethnic groups, there are so many, overlapping with each other. India is not a very homogeneous country. Unlike Western countries or even country like Ukraine, because Ukraine also they do it, but Ukraine is, you must realize, it's a very homogeneous group of people, basically. Same religious group or same linguistic group. But India is so heterogeneous, so diversified, so broad spectrum that here at times very difficult, because group classes, ethnic classes, and these kind of things are very, very common here. So that is why you cannot really equate the case of India with any Western country or even metropolis within India. Metropolis like Delhi or Bombay, where people are more aware, more people are actually led by common economic interests. But in periphery, you must realize that it is also manifestation of the geopolitical laws of the centrifugal tendencies and centripetal tendency. In the core, probably things are more under control, but in the periphery, where insurgency, where probably less development, less access to the core or facilities or economic advancement, there things, even though there are internet available, even though the digital outreach is there, but various other factors also govern those areas. I'm talking about there are bound to be manifestation of centrifugal tendencies where in the periphery. Take the case of Manipur, take the case of Assam or Mizoram or even Kashmir. But in the core area, there should not be any such problem because people are more aware, because standard of living is very advanced and people are usually guided irrespective of caste, creed, or ethnicity. People all know that they have to work because economic interests always rule in the uppermost of the minds of the people here in the metropolis. But whereas in periphery, people just at times don't care because other things matter most. So all these are very complex things in India. So, but I'm not justifying the shutdown of internet, but you have to understand the in the cases in India also by taking cognizance of these factors.
So, what could be the possible alternate measures to actually address those issues? Instead of going for an intense and disproportionate measure like a complete internet blockade, access to communication is cut off, which in
Number
itself
one,
yeah.
Number one, you see, irrespective of the political party, the state government should be made aware, the leadership should be sensitized by the government of India. At least that's what I'm saying. A directive principle in a form of a law should be there. Probably federal government cannot say that, you cannot do this. This kind of binding, this kind of law binding the state governments may not be possible. But at least the leadership has to be made aware that if internet shutdown is resorted, it should be resorted as a last resort. When there are no other options there. Suppose there is such a volatile situation has emerged that the containment of the rumor mongering, or you have to contain, or you have to insulate the people so that this kind of conflict doesn't get expanded. So for a very temporary period, to contain the situation or bringing the situation under control, one can resort that you cannot rule out. But that shouldn't be a routine activity. This is what I'm saying. At least should be guided by some kind of parameters. That is very important.
So, as we talk about the parameters, the Anuradha Bhasin judgment did, lay out the guidelines for internet shutdowns, but it is not being followed. So, I wanted to ask you have you considered a recourse at the Supreme Court regarding this?
No, Anuradha Bhasin case judgment I have written, and they have also given. The Honorable Supreme Court has said that it should be resorted. Supreme Court didn't say that, under no circumstances the internet shutdown should be resorted to. It said that whenever possible, it should be, because it's an absence of democracy. It's an absence of democracy, and then internet shutdown should not be resorted arbitrarily. In the case of Assam government's decision of shutting down the internet just for conducting examination in the higher secondary level, actually it clearly violates the spirit of the Anuradha Bhasin judgment. So that is what I'm saying. The people have to be realized. The people in the decision-making authority should be sensitized. And that kind of thing has to be done by the government of India from the center. And Anuradha Bhasin case very clearly amplifies this feeling.
So in what ways can the government of India actually track and monitor the review committees in the states, committees that are looking after, overseeing these internet shutdown orders? Because till now the government has said that it's a state order and they've sort of passed the buck on the state again for review committees as well. So how can the government of India actually oversee if this is happening or not?
You see, you must realize that this review committee, formed by the rules, telecom rules of 2017, is actually self-defeating in many ways, because it is not an independent third-party kind of thing. It is, if internet shutdown is taking place, this can be reviewed by a committee, by a cabinet minister, a cabinet secretary, maybe a member, or the state chief secretary, wherever it takes place, are members. They are all part of the executive. If internet shutdown has been necessitated or has been imposed by the state government, obviously the chief secretary of the government is a party to it. So chief secretary representing the review committee, being a party, is self-defeating. Had it been, Lokpal, or had it been something different that is not the party to such a decision, would have been more independent and meaningful. And they are, again, they are part of the executive part. They are all officials, right? Whether it's the cabinet secretary or other members, state whatever, state chief secretary or other, IT secretary or whatever. So they, at the most, to my mind, can review post facto once internet is shut down, probably as a matter, probably necessity because of the telecom rule. Probably they have a Zoom meeting like this, and in the state chief secretary will try to justify the reason, and cabinet secretary probably agree to him, and that's it. And then they would justify. But this is actually not really check and balances kind of thing. Okay, so I don't think this review committee that is mandated by the telecom rules of 2017 actually is effective and meaningful. I think we will have to find something else. Some other forums should be brought in.
So in that sense, shouldn't the internet shutdown, the decision to actually determine whether an internet shutdown should happen or not, be left to the discretion of the local district magistrate? I mean, how does the state government's decision, like in every case, sort of overpower their decision, the local district?
No, you must realize in present day structure of governance, in any state, a district magistrate just on his own cannot impose or shut down the internet. He or she must have taken the concurrence of the chief secretary or the home secretary or the chief minister or the home minister. So it is actually always decided in practice by the government of the day sitting in the capital. Of course, in a very dire exigencies, very, very grave situation, probably a district magistrate can take such situation, take such a step, but he or she must have apprised immediately to take the concurrence. So it is really state government that they actually carry out such shutdown.
Also, you talked about maintaining a centralized repository of database for internet shutdowns. Why do you think it's important, and is that even doable?
In today's India, it's a very, very sad thing that you don't get any uncomfortable data from the government, whether it's unemployment, whether it's electricity loss, whether anything that government finds that it may be a little embarrassing for them. They just have decided to do away with collecting this kind of information or any repository. If you ask what is the present unemployed figure, no government agency will give you. It's only guesswork by the private sector or an independent NGO or some organization. So in this case also, same thing is happening. Internet shutdowns because government is aware that it is not good. It doesn't reflect the spirit of democracy in present day, in the digital age. That's why they have decided, I mean, they have not formed or they have not tried to compile data and give it away as a public information. So you have to run from pillar to post to get the data from the government, which is not good for democracy really. So that's why I asked the minister, does the government have any intention of creating such a repository, which is very, very essential for democracy and open society to perform really.
But is that doable, sir? The second part of the question.
Which one?
For internet shutdowns, creating a central repository of database for internet shutdowns.
That will see. That
if
will, you can
have...
all. No, that is very important. Now, the figure that I'm quoting, for example, 2014, the internet incidences of 2014, the internet shutdown was barely 6 cases in India. I'm talking about 2014. Now, it has jumped to 100 incidences in 2018. Why? Because when you have an authoritarian tendency in the government, when you don't have respect for democratic norms and practices, when you think that, with your brute majority, you can just trample any kind of democratic norms, then these kind of things happen. It's basically, again, is a reflection of an authoritarian tendency. Because internet, you must realize that internet is a manifestation of democratic thing. Anybody can have access and anything is accessible. One can communicate with each other without any hindrance. You decide to shut down the internet by what? By that is a total infringement on the human liberty and democratic norms. So maybe government doesn't want to have this kind of information. They don't want to. They probably little shy that this would affect their image or something. That's why they don't want to form the repository. They would rather not give data and keep mum.
Yeah. But we've also seen, so we are talking about authoritarian tendency and the government of India, but we've also seen internet shutdowns majorly in Rajasthan and even in, West Bengal, where TMC is in power. So is it really political party dependent or?
No, look, in democracy, you have to lead by example. When central government resorts to all kinds of arbitrary things, so maybe in the state government, even if it's ruled by opposition, they also follow it. Today, ED is selectively raiding only opposition people. They will, give the ruling party people, even if there are accusations, there are allegations, they will be just scot-free. Don't you think this kind of precedent will be repeated when the opposition, this is a human tendency. But I'm not justifying it. And then I cannot justify if there are arbitrary shutdowns in Rajasthan or Trinamool Congress ruled West Bengal. This cannot be justified. But this situation, that's why if arbitrary and, on the slightest pretext you shut down the internet, it really actually is very harmful for democratic practices. So that is why I have there should be a directive principle for everybody to comply. Everybody should take cognizance that this is not a good thing. Okay, so if Rajasthan is have resorted to this kind of arbitrary shutdown, it's not aberration because it must have started by the Delhi or any BJP ruled state. That's what I'm saying. It should be uniform. Everybody should respect. Everybody should try to comply that directive.
Have you considered a private member's bill on internet shutdowns yet? And if you have considered, what would be the provisions in it?
No, see, I have tried other windows. I have raised questions, I have written letters, and it has fallen almost to deaf ears. So I am seriously contemplating of raising a private member's bill. But private member's bill also, even though admitted, it will not be discussed unless the brute majority decides in the parliament. No, this is the irony, but it will be at least recorded. But again, there are silver lining is that when you raise it on the floor of the parliament, even if the government doesn't comply, but at least they say that if something has come up, it is not just they can get away with repeating and doing same thing again and again. At least their public opinion or aspirations of the people are being ventilated by an opposition member. So it is very important for opposition members like us to raise it, and I'll continue to raise all such things in the forum and in the parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Bordoloi, for giving us your time and sharing with us your views. It was really an insightful discussion.